If I told you to look at this piece of art, might you recognize it? Sure, you would see it and realize that it was abstract style, but it was also different in that apart from being abstract, it had meaning that could only be found after hours of searching in the painting. The art movement that this piece falls into is called Cubism, and in fact this is probably one of the most famous paintings that came out of this artistic period. It was created by Pablo Picasso at his home in Paris and shown first at the 1937 World's Fair, according to Pablo Picasso Paintings, Quotes, and Biography. Though not obvious, this painting is entitled Guernica, after a city who held a resistance movement during the Spanish Civil War. It was known as one of Picasso's most political pieces, and according to Dorothy Kopelman from the Aesthetic Realism Foundation, the piece is seen as symbolic of the horrors of war. It was in response to bombing of Guernica by the German Nazis. With this as a famous example, let's jump into the origin of Cubism and how it developed, as well as how it impacted the future of art. My name is Lauren Polo, and I will be using this video to explore the origins of Cubism, as well as comparing some of the paintings that were a direct result of this artistic movement. I will also be looking at the applications that came from it, with some of which we still see today in modern art. So, the real question, what is Cubism? Cubism's time frame is from 1907 to about 1921. After this, Cubism started evolving outside the artistic realm of this period. According to Christopher Green of the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, who wrote Cubism Introduction, he thinks of Cubism as the link between modern Euro painting and sculpture and the 19th century European art. He considered it to be one of the most influential art movements of the 20th century. Of this art movement, the most famous artist to come out of this period was Pablo Picasso, but Georges Braque was known to be his counterpart in creating this movement. Paul Cézanne was known for his 3D Cubism, but that came before Braque. And 3D Cubism was possible because of the art creation itself. Cubism occurs when a whole piece of art is deconstructed and reconstructed from different viewpoints to look abstract. It has influenced other artists including architecture and literature. This was still a time period when artists all convened together to share ideas. It would not be a surprise to find people like F. Scott Fitzgerald or Salvador Dali at a table with Picasso discussing future art concepts. So let's talk a little bit about Cubism's evolution, and it's really specifically its time periods. Cubism was broken up into two different time periods, analytical Cubism and synthetic Cubism. Analytic Cubism is where Picasso really thrived. He started what was called Proto-Cubism, which was the initial start of Cubism. Later on you merge into High Cubism, where some of his paintings were shown as well. As an example of synthetic Cubism, we'll see that later in one of the future slides where we compare Picasso's painting to one by Jean Metzinger. Synthetic Cubism includes crystal Cubism, which is where Metzinger really thrived. So let's go ahead and jump into the first piece. The first piece for comparison is Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, which is created by, you guessed it, Pablo Picasso. If my French is any good, it translates to the Women of d'Avignon, which was a street in Paris. The medium is oil on canvas, and it was created by Pablo Picasso in his home in Paris, France. According to our textbook, this piece is one of the first in Cubism's art period to become famous, but it also came with a lot of shock value because it portrayed prostitutes on a street. The interesting thing is that some are seen wearing traditional African masks, and others are portrayed as Spaniard women. Artistically, this image says a lot. This could mean that women have to put on a mask to hide how they feel about prostituting themselves, or it could mean that the audience will never really understand women, or that they will understand some, but not all, in the picture. Either way, the painting caused outrage because it was seen as too risque. People did not see the art, they saw the indecency of the piece. The second piece is from 1914, and according to timelines, puts us in the center of Cubism period. Jean Metzinger, who was located in France when creating this piece, he was a medic during World War I, and he created this piece in response to serving and elected to paint a soldier playing chess rather than a bloody war scene. According to Joan Moser, it could be considered to be a self-portrait. This portrait says a lot. It creates an optical illusion because you can see more than one character within the soldier. However, by doing something so simplistic, it could also say that people waited around a lot during World War I, especially when it came to soldiers who were ready at any moment to fight, but needed to keep themselves distracted. In comparing the two pieces from Picasso and Metzinger, they both reflect the transition from proto-cubism, seen in Picasso's painting, and in Metzinger's into crystal cubism, which was at the end of the Cubism art period. Both paintings are done in the same medium, but the similarities really end there. They have a dramatically different color scheme, where you see that Picasso's has many natural neutral tones, and Metzinger's really creates the vibrant difference between black, red, and green. The topic of the painting also differs, and even in the interpretation, where Metzinger's piece is almost an optical illusion because you can see more than one man in his image. You see multiple people doing multiple actions in Picasso's painting. Their styles differ, but they are both trying to accomplish something different. And the two-dimensional analysis of the ladies, it downplays their curves, especially when it comes to Picasso's paintings. He makes them seem almost rigid, and it dehumanizes them in a way. Where that differs with Metzinger, you don't really see the fact that the soldier is a human at all. It's more of a shadow, which could speak to the fact that human soldiers were not really considered human. They were more considered as soldiers who the government thought of as unhuman. They did not care enough about soldiers' lives to really take them seriously, and to understand that many lives were lost, especially during World War I. Metzinger speaks to the pain of an era, and Picasso really wanted to make people feel something, and he made them outraged, and that made many people pay attention to the type of art that he was bringing forward. All art is created in response to something. In a lot of cases from Cubism, it was in response to war from the two pieces that we compared. But that was the age. This art movement occurred at the same time as World War I. You can look at Pablo Picasso's Guernica and see the pain there, or you can look at Metzinger's piece and see that there's always something within a piece of art that people miss initially. It's really only in reflection of the time that art really has a big impact. I think people can take a look at the ladies of d'Avignon and really misunderstand the piece that Picasso was trying to portray there. My interpretation is completely different than that of another, but that's what really creates this art. Cubism pushed art to move from three-dimensional Renaissance-type paintings over to modern art, where dimensionality really wavered. Because Cubism ignored the concept that art should copy nature, it instead emphasized the dimensionality of the canvas. And Cubism's impact in art can be summarized as the following. Artistic jumps are needed to progress into innovative techniques and styles. Without it, there would not be any moving forward, and art, like anything else, would stay stagnant. There has to be something or someone that pushes it forward. Picasso was one of the instigators of Cubism, and by doing that, he really pushed the world forward into starting something new. He didn't really create the entire art movement himself, but he started something that gave other people ideas to move forward. These are my references from all the pieces and from all the information that I obtained during my research presentation. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me talk and give more information about Cubism.